There's probably nowhere else in the country where you'll see a sight like this. Donkeys, hundreds of them, of every age, shape, size and hue. They're gentle creatures, donkeys, but these soft faces and trusting eyes conceal a catalogue of misery that's almost as long as the list of 474 donkeys resident here. For this is the donkey sanctuary near Sidmouth in Devon, where animals that were ill-used, ill-treated, worn out, or just homeless can spend their remaining days in peace. And if you've ever doubted that donkeys needed a sanctuary, then just read some of the case histories. Brenda, a 35-year-old mare, in foal and in great physical distress, taken from a horse market. The foal was born in the safety of the sanctuary, but the mother may yet die from the strain of pregnancy on a heart and kidneys that were just too old.
Here's a boy.
If Timothy's ears look a funny shape compared to his companions, that's because they were slashed by vandals using carving knives. And those are two of the least unpleasant stories.
Oh, look at that. How old is Matthew now?
He must be. He looks quite young.
No, he's nearly 50. Look, all his teeth have gone at the top.
Yeah.
Poor Matthew.
Oh, Matthew.
Like all the animals here, they owe their lives quite literally to this woman, Mrs Svendsen.
He's got a very sad story because some boys with jam jars cut him all up down on his tummy and slashed him, so he had to have a very big operation. He's all right now. He's very happy now.
Who's that?
She established the sanctuary here on the county's south coast 4 years ago, and the floodgates opened.
Yes. Do you want to see how old Nellie is?
Yeah.
Shall we have a look and see? Come on, somebody have a guess.
But 50?
Yes, you're very near. Look at those teeth there.
Teeth?
They've
About
gone at the top,
48.
haven't they?
Well, that's
Well,
just completely gone.
Yes,
40.
it's completely gone there. No, she's older than 40, Timmy. I think
Mrs Svendsen is a remarkable woman, but then so is her story.
And she came.
It started over 20 years ago when she and husband Niels were setting up their first home.
Given a lot of rides on the beach. We had to move into a very small flat, and we had 2 very small children, and I wasn't allowed to hang nappies out on the line. And we got quite desperate with this in the flat, and I was bored silly really at home. I didn't find I'd enough to do. And so we designed and invented our own little clothes dryer to use in the flat, and decided we'd market it. It worked so well, and I used to go around selling in the daytime, and Niels and I used to make them together in the evening. He's very, very good with his hands. And we saw this programme, a Get Ahead programme, advertised that the News Chronicle were running on the BBC. And with our tongue in our cheek, we entered it. And thanks to Niels, we got through and we won the first prize, which was £5,000.
That win was just the beginning of the Svendsen story. Niels still has the £5,000 cheque framed and hanging on his office wall. They formed a small company, went into production, and when turnover reached £500,000, sold out to an electrical giant. The Svendsens became business consultants, put a shipyard back on its feet. But still, they wanted something more out of life, something they could work at together for a lifetime.
And we eventually found the Solston Hotel in Orchard St Mary, which was a beautiful old building, very, very big, with plenty of grounds, which I wanted. And we felt we could make a go of this together, despite it being a white elephant. And so we bought the Solston and these beautiful grounds in which I wanted to have my donkeys. And so I bought a little donkey called Naughty Face, who lived up to her name and kept us awake every night for a little while until we settled down. Realised she needed a friend, so we brought another one. And I started to breed donkeys in that day and joined the Donkey Breed Society and got very interested. But then, of course, I began to get very concerned because as I went round buying donkeys, I began to find more and more in trouble. And this really began to upset me. And visitors from the hotel one day came in and said they'd been on the beach, quite locally, and there was a donkey collapsed on the beach, and they'd seen this man hitting it with sticks, and wouldn't I do something because they knew how much I loved donkeys. So I went out to this beach and had almost a fight with this man, got a wagon out, picked this little donkey up and brought her back. She's about 35 years old then and had had a heart attack on the beach. And really I lay there with her head on my lap, and I thought, right, this is what I want to do. I want to look after donkeys.
Well, from such very small beginnings, one saved donkey, how on earth do you get to the stage where you have such an enormous sanctuary to run?
Well, it just grew and grew, really. We bought a little house just below the hotel that had some stabling, and people just sort of seemed to bring donkeys in. They heard that I was looking after them, and I eventually got up down at Salston to having about 46 donkeys, which was costing a tremendous amount, and you know, all our personal funds were sort of slipping away down the donkeys' mouths. So we decided we'd form a registered charity, and then we could appeal for funds to help us from the public. And thank goodness I did, because a short time after this, about 12 months after, completely out of the blue, I got a phone call one night, and I rang it up, and a Mr. Holman answered and said, "I'm Mr. Holman from Barclay Trust, and Mrs. Svendsen, are you sitting down?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "Well, you've been left a legacy." And I said, "Well, great, I've never had a legacy." He said, "Well, it's 204 donkeys, Mrs. Svendsen." And of course, I was absolutely shattered. And apparently, this elderly lady, Miss Philpin, who in fact I'd helped, I'd taken a few donkeys from her, had died. And in her will, she'd left that all the donkeys were to come to me, and what I couldn't take were to be shot. Well, it was a tremendous problem, obviously. I couldn't let them be shot. And so started this immense job of taking in 204 donkeys. And it was almost impossible, as you'd imagine. We had to sell our house, and we had to buy a farm, the one we're standing on now, and we'd nowhere near enough money in the charity, obviously, so we had to sell one or two more things, and we bought half the farm, and the sanctuary bought the other half. And eventually we moved up here with 57 acres, and by this time about 250, 300 donkeys.
Betty, why, of all things, should you choose to channel your energies, your sympathies, your compassion into donkeys?
Well, I think if you look at pictures of donkeys, you can see they're the most beautiful animals. They're the most underrated animal, I think, perhaps in the world. They've always been used by man, always been used badly by man. They don't kick back particularly. A donkey normally is very gentle and is put upon most terribly. There's nobody else in this country really, or there wasn't at that time, that was particularly interested in the fate of donkeys. And whilst I love children very, very much, and I'm linking them in now with the sanctuary more, to start a children's charity in one way was unnecessary. It's been very well done by other charities, and the same with dogs and perhaps cats. But nobody was championing the donkey, and it's my beautiful love. They're such marvellous animals.
The sanctuary is divided between two farms. Brookfield, where the younger, fit donkeys graze on 127 acres, and this smaller unit, Slade House Farm, where visitors are more than welcome. Here you'll find the geriatrics, old-timers between 35 and 50, an intensive care unit and an isolation block for the newcomers who have to be cleared of parasites and disease before joining the rest of the herd. And there's a house rule that says all new stallions must be gelded. After all, 474 donkeys, with fresh cases coming in every week, is more than enough to cope with, without breeding new foals every year.
Betty, it all looks very clinical here because you've got an intensive care unit and an isolation unit. Why do you need all these different units in a donkey sanctuary?
Well, of course, when they come in with all sorts of sicknesses and illnesses, and come on, darling, apart from needing to be isolated in case they're carrying an infection to the other. Come on, my love. In case they carry an infection to the other, we also need a lot of time to get them to know us, to feel gentleness and gentle hands, you know, and to start treating them. They all have to have anti-tetanus and anti-flu jabs, and they have to have a proper full medical. They have to have the feet done. Come on. This is my beautiful lucky lady that I rescued from the beach, one of the very first.
Looks very colourful.
Yes. And of course, there's a lot of veterinary work. And when we have the vets, it's £15 a visit. So obviously, I had to train myself to do a tremendous lot of it to save the cost for the sanctuary.
Is this why you always walk around with a stethoscope in your pocket?
That's right, because a lot of them have lung troubles. And we have to listen. The first sign a donkey is ill is its breathing alters. So we check these every single day, nearly, to make sure that their breathing is normal, and then we know they're all right, with no problems.
How long do they stay in isolation?
Well, they stay 4 weeks, and then after they've been 4 weeks, if they're fit enough, they go out to Brookfield. We put them into twos, first of all, so they have a friend. And then, come on, Cindy, darling, she's got a big growth on the other side. There's a friend, Lucy, that's always with her. Then they go out, they go out to one of the units then, in Brookfield. If they're not fit, some of them have to stay here almost all their lives. These came in from Blackpool 5 weeks ago. Come on. Molly, come on.
A bit fit now, aren't they?
Yes, they're looking much better. Much, much better. Come on, my love. That's Bonanza. He's got emphysema. His lungs have completely gone. That's a lovely big one, Buffalo. Look how thin, though. These were working. They're all over 30. And they were working to the end of this season.
He's
Come on, my love.
enormous.
Yes, they're enormous, aren't they? Made thousands of children happy, these little donkeys. Very old now, alas.
And who have we got in here?
Well, here you've got Hansel and Gretel, who are the saddest cases that we had in. You wouldn't realise it now. Come on, Hansel, pet. Still got a lot of trouble with his back. He was the most desperate case I think we had in, the two of them. They were so thin, they were suffering from severe malnutrition, rickets, everything, that they almost died on us. We prosecuted and got the maximum penalty.
What sort of condition do you find that they're in when they arrive, most of them?
Well, OK, don't push. They come in always. I mean, literally, we nearly weep sometimes, the way they come in. They've been so ill-treated. They're terrified of humans. They've been starved, ill-treated, perhaps beaten, some of them, vandalised. You'd be surprised what human beings can actually do to the donkeys. It's sickening, really. I've sat in these stables on a straw bale many nights, all night. And sometimes, you know, you sit there with a little donkey like Zachary or somebody that you know is dying. You've done all you can. And he's dying because of human beings who've just totally mistreated him and not looked after him. And, you know, sometimes I sit on my hay bale and I sort of pray that we can keep going with this, because it's so wrong that people mistreat them so much. And why should these poor little animals be so terribly put on? And I just sit there one night, I know, with Zachary. I was sort of praying that it would go right and I could have enough money to keep going, because sometimes you do wonder, they keep coming in and coming in. And he did die. And I got up in the morning really depressed, and because I went down, first letter I opened was a cheque for £5,000. It's the biggest legacy we'd ever had. And it just seemed as if he died. I'm sorry, but, you know, it just seemed he died so that we could get this money in, and he must have given a message somewhere.
There won't be a dry eye in the house.
No, sorry. No, but sometimes, you know, you just can't help suffering for these poor little things, you know.
What about donkeys on the beach, though? Now, what do you think about their use? Hello,
Well, you
Emma.
know, children adore donkeys and they love donkey rides, and what better? When it's run properly, we've no objections at all. We're great for donkeys, but so often you get beach operators who let the mares be put into foal during the winter by the stallions that are running loose with them. They have their foals. They bring one little foal down on the beach all day so that it looks beautiful for the customers who come round. Hello, Angus. Looks lovely for the customers who come around. The other mares who are actually feeding their foals are forced to work on the beach with a full milk bar, if you like to put it that way. The foal is left alone in the morning from 8 o'clock, the time they go down to the beach, to 6 o'clock when the donkey comes back. And people riding on the beach don't think of this. They don't think about that poor little foal left back at home. And we are working very hard to try and get this stopped with the Riding Acts Establishment Committee. And we have set up rules now that should be carried out on the beaches.
Well, that's in the summer. What happens in the winter now, for instance, when they're not being used?
Well, in many cases, this is where the problem happens. There's one very large beach with many donkeys there, where the donkeys in the winter are put onto the council's rubbish dump. With just barbed wire around the edges, no good watering facilities, no real grass. I mean, there's tin cans and everything underneath the ground. And you'll find quite a lot of donkey operators don't really worry, really, what happens to the donkeys during the winter. They're not giving them any money, they're farmed out, or they're just left to run in fields. And again, this isn't right. Donkeys should be looked after all the year round, not just when they're making money.
This is Suie. She's a dear old lady now of about 37, and we're sitting down because her feet aren't too good and she's much more comfortable down here. Now, until about a year and a half ago, Suie was a beach donkey, which meant that she was out on the sands in the heat of the day, giving children rides for 8, 9, maybe 10 hours a day. Until one day, she just collapsed on the beach in front of all the holiday makers, parents and children, just collapsed from sheer exhaustion and misuse. The owner started beating her, but fortunately somebody on the beach knew of Mrs Svendsen and the sanctuary and persuaded the owner to let her take the donkey and bring her here. Well, at 35, which she was then, she really shouldn't have been working at all, even if she'd been in the peak of condition. But of course, when she arrived, like so many of the donkeys that come here, they found that she'd been not just badly treated, but not fed properly. Her feet hadn't been looked after. She really was in a terrible state. It's a very sad story, and it's one that Betty Svendsen wrote about in this book, the story of Suie, the beach donkey. Now, it's a marvellous children's book, so it's a good way of telling children how they really ought to look after beach donkeys. But it's much more than that. It's, if you like, part of the commercial side of the business, a commercial side that's absolutely essential just to keep the place running.
Any charity needs a sound commercial base if it plans to remain in business. And Slade House is the commercial and administrative heart of the sanctuary. Every penny is meticulously accounted for. Donkeys are named, filed, and their case histories catalogued. There are 3 donkey storybooks, a set of illustrated note cards and framed pictures. They're all for sale to help swell the funds.
Well, of course, our main task in the office at the moment is fundraising, which is always a big problem. And people from all over the country of all ages are absolutely marvellous. They send us donations in, and we do, of course, have to reply to every single donation that comes in, be it 10 pence or £100. And so there's a lot of correspondence goes out on this. Now, we feel these people having once sent us money should be kept in touch with the work that we're doing so that they know how their funds are being spent. So we send newsletters out to all these people, which, of course, means quite a big customer record card, so that we can circulate them twice a year with a newsletter. At the moment, the circulation is 25,000.
Do many of those 25,000 actually turn up on the door and say, can we have a look at our donkeys?
Well, I wouldn't say 25,000, thank goodness, but a lot of people do come. There's no charge. They can just come, and they're entitled to see, I feel, where their money's spent. We don't take appointments. If people want to come and look around, they're very welcome.
You also do a tremendous amount of work with schools. Now, how do you involve the youngsters? Because presumably they're the next generation of people that you hope will not treat donkeys so cruelly.
Well, exactly. We do hope that we shall make ourselves outdated within about 20 or 30 years. And, of course, the thing is that if we can teach the children right from the start what donkeys need, they need their feet doing, they need delousing, they need treating for worms, all these basic things, we feel we will stop them coming in. And with this in mind, I wrote a lesson on the donkey and let the education officer at East Devon at Exeter have a look at it and said, would you think this lesson would be any help? We sent one out at his request, really, to each of the education officers in every area of the country. And we only started doing this about 2 months ago, and so far we've sent 17,161 lessons out.
This must make you feel very gratified that youngsters are taking that much interest in them.
Yes, it does, really, because it's a tremendous help to us if we feel we've got the children behind us.
His front hooves are very long.
Yeah, what's behind them?
Donkeys' feet need regular attention. If left, the hooves grow rather like human fingernails into long, curving horns. In extreme cases, the animals end up walking on their heels, stretching all the muscles in the back of the leg, so that even after treatment, the feet remain deformed and painful. So the farrier is almost a fixture, with each donkey needing treatment every 6 weeks.
Come on, Matt. Come on.
Not all the fit donkeys are kept at the sanctuary. Nearly 100 are out on loan, given free to homes where they'll be cared for and appreciated. And every 3 months, those homes and the donkeys are inspected to ensure that they stay fit and happy. Others are put to work, bringing hope to handicapped children.
Well, it really started because, as you can see, many of them here are very, very fit, and donkeys have a tremendous affinity to children. And of course, there are a tremendous lot of handicapped children in this country, and there's very good riding for disabled when children get older, but the younger children can sort of liaise with the donkey. There is an affinity. They're woolly, they're warm, and we felt if we could allow handicapped children to ride the donkeys, then the donkeys themselves would be fulfilling a useful purpose, having been rescued, and of course the children would gain a lot from this type of occupation.
And what sort of results have you had from it?
Well, it's been fantastic, really. We've been doing it now for 2 years, and the progress some of these children have made over the 2 years has surprised even the head teachers, who have written us letters, you know, sort of saying, we never thought that this child would be able to take an interest or attempt to sit up. And the very real joy it's brought to so many children has been vitally important in their lives. We aim to make the children progress, even the ones that have never been out of a wheelchair. We get now to actually try sitting up on the donkey's back, and they do simple bending and simple riding, which is extremely good for them.
The donkeys here obviously very happy, but let's now talk about a less happy situation, and that's donkeys in Europe, the Far East and the Middle East. What work have you done there?
Well, it was quite horrifying, really. Of course, I think the donkeys are badly treated in this country, but when you go abroad, of course, you find these most terrible saddle sores, and you find donkeys, particularly in Cairo, where they've no thought of donkey welfare. They drive the donkeys between the shafts of the cart at the gallop at 96 degrees until they physically drop dead in the harness. And they're not interested in having them treated. It's like a car to them, it just can run out, and when it runs out, they'll replace it. Tunisia was much better. There they were concerned for the donkeys' welfare, the people, and they welcomed the help we gave and the clinics we set up. We treated donkeys non-stop from morning till night.
Also, I think you were amazed to find that there were no old donkeys in these countries.
No, that's quite right. We've done a survey on ages everywhere we've been, and nowhere have we found donkeys over the age of 15. And in some countries, say Tunisia, the average age of the death of a donkey is 12. Now, in this country, donkeys live to about 45, and this is a tremendous problem in that they're dying far too soon. And in these countries where they're used and they're economically essential, we felt we must find the reason why. And we do think we found this now. We found they're all absolutely full of parasites in the gut. They're never treated for worms or this type of thing, so that when they get to about the age of 12, the stomach lining has actually been eaten away by the worms, and so they get septicemia and they die. And so we're putting in a worming program. We're trying to put it in right through the world, so that if the donkeys are wormed even once a year, we think that they should live at least another 5 years.
Nina. Nina. Hello. Hello, how are you? Hey? Yes, you're beautiful. Absolutely lovely.
Betty Svendsen's enthusiasm and love for donkeys is infectious. She has small children writing to them at Christmas. People of all ages knit rugs to keep the old and sick warm in the winter. And one girls' school in the Midlands sends a regular supply of homemade ginger biscuits. Apparently, they're a delicacy to donkeys. But biscuits apart, some people have some very funny ideas on what to feed them.
Ginger biscuit, do you want him, Mo? There you are, darling. There's a good boy. Well, yes, you could say that. We had one group of donkeys came in, and the lady rang me up and said, I've sent the cake with them, Mrs Svendsen. And of course, we call in the trade, you call pony nuts or cow nuts cow cake. So I assumed it was going to be a bag of nuts. And when we opened the box that she'd sent, which was a big crate, you know, it was full of Battenbergs and ginger cakes and sandwich cakes and absolutely impossible. And the donkeys that she sent in, one of them, little Bilko, had the worst case of rickets we'd ever seen, because they just had been fed. She thought cake meant cake, and the poor animals had suffered terribly. And this was an intelligent person.
One thing that people must ask you, these are all very elderly donkeys here, you get sick donkeys as well.
Yes.
Why do you take them in, spend so much time and money on bringing them back to health? Why don't you put them down?
Well, all these donkeys here that we're surrounded by are over 35. Some of them are in the 50s. Now, they're enjoying themselves, perhaps for the first time in their life. They've got a chance to really enjoy life, so why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they be allowed to, as long as they're not suffering? If they're lying down in the day more than they're standing up, and they get sores. And if, like poor old Nina, they go blind, then we have to put them down. And it's done here on the premises. And we lead them out and give them a ginger nut. So they're not frightened. They don't know anything. But it's a sad time to have to put them down, and I feel they deserve a nice geriatric age. Why shouldn't they?
Why do you think people are cruel to donkeys? Is it inert viciousness or just ignorance?
Well, it's a mixture, really, I think. A donkey is small, isn't it? It's fairly biddable. You wouldn't start beating a horse about the head because it could turn around and kick you very hard. But a donkey is small enough for a large man to control, and I think this is one of the reasons they get hit and hurt so hard. And the other is pure ignorance. People don't realise donkeys have to be fed in the winter and the summer. They don't realise the needs at all, which is why we're trying to educate people to look after them better.
I must say, Betty, the thing that strikes me about this place is that there's great sadness here, certainly, but there's also great joy.
Well, I hope you feel that, because this is the joy of my life particularly. And I hope they're all happy here.
You're making a lot of noise, aren't you? What was she pushing?